What's the good word, y'all? DKB here, and we are discussing some sage advice that Mark Sanchez wanted to impart to Robert Saleh and coaching staff in regards to continuing to progress Zach Wilson, and for him not to turn out the way Mark Sanchez's career has turned out. And just to kind of do a quick recap and overview for those that have been living under rocks. Mark Sanchez was a former quarterback for the New York Jets. He ended up finishing his career 33 and 29, one of the most successful statistically in terms of winning percentage quarterbacks that have come across this New York Jets franchise since Joe Namath. And we're talking about one of the best playoff quarterbacks that we've had because he's been one of the few and only during his tenure with us. And we're talking about a 4-2 playoff record, 10 game winning drives. To me, Mark Sanchez has never been a failure. He's been an enigma and the product of a bad coaching staff that was too tied to the ground and pound running game and not necessarily able to evolve. And then, of course, just not having the offensive capability and the front office staff that kind of help progress and push things forward. Now, in regards to Mark Sanchez discussing Zach Wilson, he's almost the perfect person because we are effectively running the Mark Sanchez 2.0 offense. Here's exactly what his quote was in regards to his podcast, the show that he was on. We also want to develop our quarterback and really make sure he's a situational master. So when it's time to cut loose and chuck the ball around, it's not so foreign to him because all we do is run the ball. Wise words from a man that did not get as much success as he probably could have within this league with a little more proper coaching and support behind him. But he hit on a key target. Situational football would be the perfect place to start off in kind of developing a quarterback. There's two key areas I feel like that are always important, and that's going to be pre-snap reads and then pre-snap reads and then being able to run through your progression successfully. There's two very different quarterbacks that come on the field depending on what happens in the pocket, and Zach Wilson ends up kind of having a lot of this Jack on high personality. There were stats that were thrown out there. From a clean pocket, he is 53 of 70, 639 yards, a 9.1 yards per attempt average, one touchdown, no interceptions, 108 passer rating. Stats I'll take all day. Would I love to see more touchdowns on there? Yes, but we already talked about a couple plays that were stopped, right at the one and things looking vastly different. When he's pressured, however, he's 5 of 31 for 54 yards, 1.7 yards per attempt average, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also tacks on 8 sacks, which if you add up the negative 54 yards there, that puts him smack dab at a 0-yard total in terms of, productive offense. It's crazy to see the stark difference there. Obviously, that's not everything to the story, and I don't want this to be a stat-heavy kind of breakdown of Zach Wilson, but we've seen it. Keep in mind, and this is something that I think needs to have a heavy emphasis, Zach Wilson just wrapped up his 17th game, literally his first full NFL season against the Broncos. He's coming against the Packers and the Broncos, which were the number 1 and number 2 ranked pass defenses in the NFL. And we've seen specifically with the Broncos, every quarterback not named Geno Smith struggle against them. Ironically enough, another former New York Jets quarterback. But still, Zach Wilson's also coming off that meniscus injury. Yes, he's been playing 4 games since, but there's a lot of time missed that he couldn't practice. He was only able to focus on the mental piece, and there was joint practices that got taken away from him, and a lot of things that could have helped progress him moving forward. Irregardless, with where we're at right now, we're still 4-0, and there's a lot of fans that have a problem with the way that we're going about winning. Yes, if we had average quarterback play, we're probably a guaranteed playoff contender. However, the New York Jets and this coaching staff, me specifically as well, I still have a lot of faith in Zach Wilson and the reason that we brought him in, and this staff being able to develop him, take him to the destination he needs to get to, which hopefully will be a Super Bowl winner, but a consistent playoff berthing quarterback for the New York Jets, hopefully for his entire tenure of his career. Now, there's a couple things with Zach Wilson. For one, currently, if we take a look at him, he's essentially still operating as a one-read quarterback. He kind of almost feels like, and whether this is scripted, whether this is just kind of him and kind of how he's attacking defenses, he already has a target in mind, it seems like most times when he snaps the ball, which leads me to think that he still needs to do a lot of pre-snap read work. Any X Factor video breakdown that you go through, you can essentially see the same thing on tape. There's areas and coverages that he should understand what looks like should be open. And again, this is a chess match between the offense and defense. That doesn't guarantee that they will automatically be open, but still, a person that is a expertise at this should win more often than not. And two, as we kind of mentioned with the stats, he's frazzled under pressure quite a bit. One of the things that stuck out to most to me was one of the recent breakdowns that they did against the Broncos. There was a Tyler Conklin pass where he was running a route off to the right side, and Tyler Conklin was clearly open. Zach Wilson double hitches. He had a pretty clean pocket, and yet, even though he completed the pass, we got a first down, he sacrificed potentially another 10, 12 yards, waiting what was probably less than a second and a half to get that ball out there more. And we know that he has the rocket arm, so you can only imagine how much more potentially could have been there. But there was open real estate for him, and we really limited our offense, which this is everything our offense is built around: yards after catch ability, with us playing this short to intermediate kind of passing offense and then centering things around the running game. And a huge factor that's going into this is the accuracy issues. And I really think a lot of this is mental and is somewhat of a confidence issue, even though he's saying all of the right things. We took him on in part of his breakout season primarily because he had excellent accuracy, but he's struggling with everything from ball placement to overthrowing receivers right now. And it's not like we have a bunch of Braxton Berrioses running around. We have CJ Uzomah. We have Tyler Conklin. Denzel Mims was rolled out there. We have Corey Davis. Yes, we have Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. But he has quite a bevy of receivers to throw to that are ranging from guys with great catch radiuses to just guys that know how to work themselves open. And a lot of the times he's just missing a lot of this easy stuff still. And I do think it's because of pressure, and I think it's because of confidence. Now, when we take a look at some of the highlights, this isn't to necessarily crush him because I'm actually still a huge believer in Zach Wilson. Highlights. It doesn't matter why we're 4-0. We are 4-0. Yes, he's contributed to one of those 4 victories significantly, which would be the Steelers' comeback game. I would also argue the Dolphins game was a solid enough one for him. The other outings, not so much, but he has no turnovers. We haven't been able to say that in a long time, and we're actually on a 3-game streak. It was hard pressed for us to even say that we can get this out of one game for a long time. So we need to take these baby steps and kind of build around that. We have no turnovers. Even though I feel like he's struggling mentally, he's still doing all the right things that a great leader would try to do in terms of galvanizing the team and keeping that team unity. The Steelers' comeback was a great victory for us. We heard the epic, let's fucking go get a touchdown, paraphrasing that came from a lot of the players, and they stepped up to the plate, and they did. We had him recently backing up Elijah Moore, who's been ostracized by a lot of the fan base for his inopportune timing with criticizing his role in the offense. And then we even had the Broncos game where a lot of players mentioned he's walked into the huddle and mentioned, I know a lot of our critical guys are out, but, we're having new guys step up and we're going to go get the job done, and they did. And then, of course, the fourth quarter prowess. Again, I don't want this to be a stat-heavy thing, but we've talked about it a bunch of people ad nauseum. Zach Wilson, fourth quarter, is the guy that we're looking for across an entire game. And I feel like this is part of his intangible ability. I would say he has 2 superpowers, as Robert Saleh likes to call it. One would be kind of this clutch gene, almost in the mode of a Mark Sanchez, because you don't have to do a whole lot and you're focused on a run game and controlling the clock, and hopefully your defense is locking people down. When they do score, it tends to be a pretty close game, and that's when you want to start kind of relying on the quarterback to seal the deal. We've seen enough of Zach Wilson to say he has the potential to get that done. If he gets anywhere even close to a Mark Sanchez, who was very clutch, again, 10 game-winning drives for him in a 4-2 playoff record, then I think a lot of us will sign up for that day in and day out. And then there's still a lot of people around the league that seem to have a lot of support from him. Connor Hughes, Aaron Rodgers, coming off of his game that he plays, Zach Wilson mentioned he's going to be a really talented guy in the league for a long time. Chad Ochocinco, Tony Romo still seems to be a big supporter. So ultimately, this Patriots game moving forward, we're looking at the start of his official sophomore year in the NFL. There's a lot for us to build around in terms of what he's done. There's a lot for the coaching staff to work out with him. Stop having so much happy feet and, throwing off the back of your foot, even though you can throw rockets across your body and do all of these kind of things. That's not what the offense is built around anymore. I would say the biggest thing is really going to be his pre-snap recognition, understanding where he can attack, when he wants to attack. And then from there, you can do the masterclass stuff and, try to manipulate some of these defenses and things. But he really just needs to continue to focus on the fundamentals of what we tried to do in year one with them. And I think we'll be just fine. Mike LaFleur has not called a perfect game by any means, but there's plenty of plays on tape for the guys that love to review that kind of stuff where you can see guys have clearly gotten open quickly for him, even before the pocket has collapsed many times, and there's overthrows or there's hitches and a slow progression for Zach Wilson to mess it up. So ultimately, we're seeing elements of some very minor things that can be done to alter his game and make him look much better. I mean, ultimately, if we even just get the accuracy to fall in our favor a little bit, there's like 3 to 6 passes, depending on volume at any point in the game, where things change drastically. We're looking at either a touchdown, we're looking at more extra first downs, or we're looking at a more consistent drive for us that would have led to some first, second quarter points in many of these cases. So I got a strong feeling that he'll turn it around. I have a lot of belief in Robert Saleh. Even though he's not the offensive guy, he's been doing a great job as the CEO. But Mike LaFleur to continue to scheme these guys into the right positions. And I'll be interested to see how Rob Calabrese does in molding Zach Wilson into whatever he's ultimately going to be. Maybe he doesn't actually need to stay a game manager. Maybe he evolves into something else. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on kind of Mark Sanchez's take. Do you feel like Zach Wilson plays decent enough situational football now, or is there something else about his game and tendencies that stick out to you? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.